not sure where yours. So my phone rang, so it stopped in the middle. So this is my slab for the bottom. Remember, I've got those little tiny bites, the little triangle bites cut out of the corner. So I'm gonna use that, and I'm gonna clean this up while it's on the table. I'm gonna take a damp sponge and run my finger along that edge. Just wanna make sure that's kind of neat and clean. All right. So this is still pretty soft. I'm actually gonna flip it over and do the same thing on this side. Clean up the bottom. Okay. Flip it over again. Clean up my table a little. Okay. Okay. So now I'm gonna use my straight edge again. This little ruler, kind of nice. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just tuck it under this edge and use my thumbs. I don't know if you can see where I am here. I'm just gonna use my thumbs, or I'll just use my finger. You see how I can just bend that up? What that straight edge does is it gives it less of my fingerprinties pushing in there. And so I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. And I don't want to bend a whole lot, I just want to bend a little bit, right? Because it's really just a little tray to catch a little water for my little plant. So as I bend each one of those sides up, I'm kind of pushing on the inside here, just sort of define it a little bit. I'm gonna go to those corners. Now the corners are still a little bit open, which is good. So I wanna get a little slip in there. And I'm using the toothbrush, so I'm kind of slipping and scoring at the same time. So again, remember, whenever you wanna attach two pieces of clay, you really gotta slip and score. Don't fake this. Like, so many people think like, oh, it's sticking now, but you know what happens? The minute it dries out, it falls apart. So if we want these planters to be good, we want people to be happy with our planters and have them not fall apart, that would be great. You just take a little extra time and care with that slipping and scoring. And I'm just kind of pushing those corners together. I'm kind of squishing them and squeezing them a little. Trying not to mangle them too much or make them squish out so much. I just need a little lip, essentially, just a little lip. All right. So the other thing you want to do is you want to flip this over. Hopefully it's not too soft and wiggly, and you definitely want to make sure it's cleaned up on the back side. Where those two pieces came together, make sure that there's no little cracks or anything in there, because that is actually where things will crack. So again, like I said, take your time. I'm gonna push that up, make that stick up a little bit more. So now we've got that little tray. You see where I am? Now might be the time to write something on the bottom. You could just write "Made with Love." It's kind of a nice thing to write. Made with love. And another thing I've been putting in there is the date, right? Well, maybe not the exact date, but I'm writing April 2020. Sure to be a memorable time. So that's kind of a nice thing to do. You could just write that on there. You could sign your name if you wanted to. All right. So there's my little piece. Now, if you wanted to do a decorative rim, I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to set this aside for a second. I'm going to take that little extra bit of clay set that over there. So I've got all this extra clay. It's kind of moist, which is good. So I'm squishing it together. In clay, we do something called wedging. And so we can kind of push it against the table. So just kind of not using my fingertips so much as I'm just kind of pushing. All right, so I just basically want that to be consistent. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rip that in half because I don't need that much. So I've got a piece that's, I don't know, size of a meatball. All right, and I'm gonna squish this out like it's a fat coil. And I want it to be sort of even. So I'm gonna do something like that so I kind of have this fattish coil. And then, clean that up off the table. I'm gonna flatten, just like I did before when I was doing the slab. This is basically like a little thin slab. All right, I'm gonna throw this against the table. You could use a rolling pin on that, that'd be fine. Essentially, I want something that's as long as one of the sides of my pieces, but I want it a little thinner. So that is still too thick. I want it very thin. So I'm gonna find a rolling pin, a regular rolling pin. Well, I guess I have this giant rolling pin. It seems a little overkill, but it's within reach. Okay, so I'm gonna roll that out. I'm gonna roll it longwise too. See how much I make that grow. I'm gonna pull this one towards me. I want it pretty thin. Like you can see how thin I'm going. I think that's pretty thin. Even parts of it are ripping. All right, so I'm gonna take this. I'm just gonna do a quick measure, right? So there's my piece. Just wanna make sure it's long enough. Yeah, it is. Okay, and what I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna cut 2 strips out of it. I'm gonna cut one like that. And then I'm gonna just cut that in half. So that's about that wide. Basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a little edge. So let me slide that over. I'm gonna need 2 other sides too. So I'm gonna make another one, roll it out so that I have 4 sides. So again, just a coil. These don't need to be as long because these are going to be for the short sides. See what I mean? Don't need to do that. Let's see. Okay. All right. That looks pretty good for the short sides. I'm going to keep that edge, and I'm just going to cut this right down the middle. That could be a little thicker. Not what I mean is wider, I guess is what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna use my damp sponge just to kind of soften those edges. I don't want them hard, meaning like I don't want square edges. So I'm just rounding that with my sponge. Same thing with these. Kind of like those. Those are a little bit more organic. Right. So yeah, that's gonna work. Flatten it a little bit more. I'm gonna cut off that thicker part. Don't need that. All right. So essentially, if I'm gonna do a decorative edge on this, I'm gonna slip and score. So I'm gonna use the toothbrush and I go all along that edge. Now see, I didn't do my coils, but so I will show you without actually attaching it. I'm gonna take this. Now this is a kind of a plain thing. I could add a little bit of interest to it just by taking something really simple and maybe just making some marks. So I'm gonna be very careful because I can cut through this super simple, super easy. So I'm just gonna make little tiny lines, just using the edge of that ruler. Just gives it a little interest. They don't have to be evenly spaced. All right, there we go. I'm gonna add a little more slip to that. I just want to make sure, what this does is just kind of finishes the edge. I don't need to really slip and score this because I'm going to wrap it around. So what I'm going to do is position that so it's in the middle, and I'm going to just kind of bend around that edge. Makes kind of a nice little edge. These little ends I'm going to keep right there until I figure out exactly what I'm going to do. Maybe they go over the top. So I'll do the same thing for the side edge, because that's going to be important. You're going to see how this goes together. One nice thing about those little lines is I can kind of cut right along that line too. So that one's plenty long enough. I need to soften that edge a little bit more. It's just a little too sharp for my liking. So I'm gonna just cut right, well, just rip basically right along that line. And then I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna lift that because I kind of like that one. I would slip and score, and I'm not doing it because I'm trying to make this video go a little faster. And then I'm gonna bend that around. I can rip this little top off. I can just leave the corner joined like that, or I can make a fancier little something over the end. So basically I'm gonna take a blob, I'll show you how to make a little fancy thing. So essentially it's like a little Tootsie Roll kind of thing. Flattening, made a little oval. I could do a little decorative stuff to that. Maybe I want to do some lines going the other way. Be kind of fun. Again, the stamping, you can do any kind of stamping. Just be careful that you don't stamp so hard that you cut through it. That is a classic move. Also, when I bend this, I get these little tiny cracks. Nothing to be alarmed at. Just take a little tiny bit of water and run your finger over them. Not a lot of water. Don't get too crazy on the water. So then I can slip and score here, slip and score this. Remember, you always want to slip and score. I'm not doing it because this is taking too long, sorry. And then I can take that and I can lay that over that corner. Maybe I want to lay that down a little bit more. And I can make a really cool little decorative edge with that. I kind of like that. Let's see. It's kind of cute, huh? So you can see how I could finish off the whole top. So if you're super proud of the thing that you made, write your name on the bottom. Say, good luck, have a great day. Thanks, I got to do a fun clay project and do something good for someone. So thanks for participating, I appreciate it. So I would like to get all of these pieces back by, let's see, this Sunday's the 19th, so the Sunday after that makes it the 26th. So yeah, Sunday, I guess it's the 26th. I don't have my calendar, but I'm gonna assume that's what it is. So anyway, that would be great. And I will be at the studio from 10 until 12 p.m. for drop off. So if you wanna bring those things by, again, you're going to want to wear a mask, you're going to want gloves, you're going to want to do all of these things. Be safe, be cautious, come in one at a time, and be very careful. When these things are bone dry, which is what happens very quickly, they'll turn a dusty gray, and they are very fragile at that point. So be very careful. You don't want to manhandle these things. So if you're not used to working with clay, just trust me on this. You can keep it covered in plastic, and I can dry them here fully if you want, because they're at the most fragile state when they are bone dry. So thanks for participating, and we'll see you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.